Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Congresswoman Annie Kuster, chair of the New Democrat Coalition. Congresswoman, as you know, President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy reached a deal on the debt ceiling over the weekend. You support the bill, and this is coming very close to that drop-dead June 5th X date. We're just a week out. And you also chair the New Democrat Coalition, which is made up of center-left lawmakers, close to 100 lawmakers there. Do they support the legislation as well?
I expect most will.
Great. And was that a hard sell? The bill is 99 pages. When you read it, were you able to say right away, hey, I'm on board? Or was there a little more negotiating involved?
Well, there was a lot of review over the weekend. We had a number of presentations by the White House, by the staff, the members that had been involved directly in the negotiations, sort of a deep dive, if you will, into certain provisions. But as I was talking to my colleagues on Monday and Tuesday, it was pretty clear that we had broad support within the New Democrat Coalition. We are pragmatic members. We tend to care about the economy. So we had been very concerned about the threat of a government default. And we are focused on jobs and the economy. And so we were so relieved that there were provisions that people's lives have been protected. Social Security is untouched. Medicare is untouched. Medicaid is untouched. And we actually got some gains for serving our veterans. And so we felt good about the agreement. And I think you'll see strong support for the agreement from the New Democrat Coalition.
Just this morning on Morning Joe, you said that this deal is not perfect, but that's what a compromise is, right? You're not getting everything you want. It is more of a push and pull situation. So when you read the 99 pages, when you talked it out with members of your own party, what was that one word, maybe, if you could sum it up, that you felt and why?
Pragmatic, relieved. I wish that we were not in this situation where some of my Republican colleagues were trying to hold our economy hostage. I think it's created unnecessary anxiety for our constituents. And I think it has rattled the markets and the full faith and credit of the United States government and our standing in the world. But having come to this situation, I feel that this agreement will, A, resolve that by raising the debt ceiling so that we can move on, and B, set up a framework for future spending around our budget that is fair, and we will fight hard for our constituency. And I think we will see a more practical resolution of the budget. We won't see these kinds of games being played in a political way. I don't think we'll see a shutdown of the government, for example. That's something that's happened in the past. I think we'll just go back to a more pragmatic approach that will serve the needs of our communities all across the country.
I have been talking about the debt ceiling and these negotiations for months now, and it seemed like it was at impasse until just the last few weeks when the ball really got rolling here. And I do want to talk with you about some of your colleagues that maybe are a little more hesitant here. Just today, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did say she would not be supporting the bill. Representative Pramila Jayapal also had comments coming out against the legislation, and Congressman Greg told Axios this: some number of progressives, including myself, lean no. So I know that these members of Congress aren't in the New Democrat Coalition, but they are still your colleagues. What would you tell them? What would you tell these colleagues of yours that are a little more hesitant to support this legislation?
Well, I think every member of Congress needs to vote their district, vote for their constituency. We certainly have dozens of members of the Freedom Caucus and the Republican Caucus that plan to vote against the bill. And I respect that. Getting to 218 votes to pass this in a bipartisan way is much easier. You're starting with 435 votes. And what I've said is this vote will come from the middle out. I think we'll have about the same number of Republicans as we will Democrats, maybe a few more Democrats in the end supporting their president. But that's what's important, is that we get this passed, that we get past this crisis point, and that we don't ever come back to these kinds of politics over people's real lives that threaten our economy.
I do want to talk about some comments that your colleagues across the aisle have made. Like you said, more lawmakers in the middle are supporting this. This is what some Republicans have said. Representative Ralph Norman said the compromise was insanity, and he's vowed to, quote, that he wasn't going to, quote, vote to bankrupt our country. And your colleague across the aisle, Trip Roy, did call this legislation a turd sandwich. His words, not mine. What's your message to Republicans who don't support this legislation?
Well, to be honest, I'm shocked at some of the rhetoric from the far right-wing radical Republicans who would willingly and seemingly intentionally threaten our economic collapse. And I hope that the business community that has historically supported Republicans will have second thoughts, knowing that the number of small businesses that would close across this country, the number of people that might lose their homes because of increased interest rates, millions of people potentially losing their jobs. Personally, I'm shocked, and it's un-American.
You're saying millions of people could lose their jobs. Just in this conversation, the words catastrophic, rattle the market, and economic collapse have come up. And President Biden just this week said there's no reason why it shouldn't get done by the 5th. As we know, the 5th is that X date that Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen gave before the U.S. defaults on its financial obligations. Do you agree? Do you think a legislation will get passed by June 5th?
I do. I think the House will pass it today. It will go to the Senate tomorrow morning, Thursday. I think if all goes very smoothly, they could pass it by Friday and then head home for the weekend. I think that would be a good sign for the markets. Much less turmoil, much less concern. Let's put it behind us and resolve this entire crisis.
I know that if it doesn't get passed, there is a dire financial crisis that we could really deal with. So is defaulting on our debt, would you say, completely off the table?
It is for me, absolutely.
And can you lay it out for us point blank? How important is it for us to pass this by June 5th?
Crucial.
Can you elaborate a little bit there?
Well, I think you've mentioned it. The economists that we've spoken to, millions of Americans could lose their jobs. I've mentioned interest rates would definitely be impacted. And that, for my constituency, that's everything from their credit cards, their school loans, their auto loans, their mortgage. Everything about our lives would be impacted, and I think it would have a catastrophic impact.
You represent New Hampshire's 2nd congressional district. What has their response been here? You've mentioned that this almost seems like games are being played with politics. Do they feel that too?
Absolutely. This is a manufactured crisis. There's no reason why the far right-wing Republicans are putting us through this crisis. Keep in mind that the Congress raised the debt ceiling without incident 3 times when President Donald Trump was in office.
Do you think that President Biden waited too long to come to the negotiating table? The first time he met with Kevin McCarthy was earlier this month in May 9th. Do you think that's too late? Because a deal was officially brokered just a week out from that X date.
No, I think we were waiting to hear from Speaker McCarthy and the Republicans on their response to the president's budget. My understanding is that took the Republicans a long time to respond to that, but we weren't in a position to negotiate against our own offer. So I think the negotiation happened in a timely way. It took a week and a half. That's really quite remarkable given the scope of the issues that were involved. And I think we're in a good position now to move forward, put this issue behind us, and let's get back to the business of governing.
Do you think that this is potentially, obviously, no one wants to see a financial crisis, but is this a sign that this partisan government can come together and compromise when push comes to shove?
Absolutely. And I hope that that's the takeaway, that people will have an understanding. Let's not be engaged in these politics over people and threatening our lives and threatening our economy. Let's be engaged in the business of governing across party lines from the middle out. Moderate Democrats with moderate Republicans getting the job done, a mature approach, a pragmatic approach. I think the American people deserve that.
Congresswoman, I know how busy you must be, so I really appreciate you coming on today and taking the time. Congresswoman Annie Kuster, thank you for joining me.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much.